I'm here with Diana, who is a participant in our Mindful Monday Mapping program. And she's also actually enrolled in our course, Creative Systems Architect. So we're going to talk about her experience in our programs and just hear from her what some of the aha moments were and how she has made this program work for her. So let's welcome Diana. Thank you, Diana, for being one of our really good students in Mindful Monday Mapping. I was just talking to another student the other day, and it's been such a good group, I think, this year, um,
Mhm.
where maybe it hasn't been a giant group, but I feel like we all connected and could relate to each
Yep.
other really, really well. So
Right.
just maybe starting there of thinking about like how you enjoyed the community and everybody that was in there.
Oh, it's been a lot of fun. And actually, to your point, there's some folks that I'll see on social media and I see where they're going and I get so excited for them because I
Yeah,
can remember, the conversations we're having or
yeah.
somebody, talking about an idea and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's actually happening.
Great.
So
Mhm.
that has been a lot of fun. And yeah, and I didn't realize how valuable that would be. I mean, I know it's always nice to have community, but your group came from all different types of businesses and different experiences and different levels in their business. And I feel like, we all learned from that. And sometimes there'd be, one offshoot conversation, and all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, this makes sense to me. So I think it was really, really helpful.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and I think it just everybody was so giving and,
Mhm.
as far
Wanting
as
to help each
ideas.
other, wanting to
Oh,
lift each other.
absolutely. Yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot
So,
of fun.
and it's really fun. I think when you get to a certain level, you are sort of done with the whole competition nature of business
Yeah.
because I feel like sometimes in the beginning, you're so intimidated by competitors
Yeah.
and wanting to, make sure that you win. You know what I mean? Like it's a weird dynamic when you have,
Yeah.
I think it's insecurity when you
It's
start.
insecurity. I think you're
Yeah.
trying
Yeah.
you're not sure of what you don't know and you feel like you have to prove
Exactly.
yourself
And you're
and then
trying to
all of a
perfect.
sudden yeah it's
Yeah. But then when you get to a certain level, you're like, oh, that's actually not how it works. It's
yeah.
actually much stronger when you collaborate and when you lift each other up. And I think that that's the level that everybody's in, and it makes such a difference.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And it's like I said, and then it's fun too because you actually it's a place where you feel like you're giving. It's not, you know what I mean? And
Mm.
so it's kind of this back and forth, not just with you and your team, but with the people that we're in the group with.
Yeah.
So I feel like, because it's the content and the information, but then it's almost sometimes like a therapy session and saying, oh my gosh, I'm struggling with this, or and somebody else is saying the same thing, and you feel kind of reassured that, okay, it's not just me.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah. So Mindful Monday mapping specifically is to be able to create a lighter, shorter work week, to be able to become a better leader, to be able to look at your business as more of a buttoned up entity and not feel so scattered and just being able to do things in a quicker, more decisive way.
yep.
Um, do you think we accomplished that? Or like how do you feel where you are now versus where you
Oh
were
my gosh.
in?
I can't even tell you. I mean, for me personally, just I'd been in business for nearly 12 years.
Mhm.
I was just feeling like I was being pulled in a lot of different directions. I had a lot of personal responsibilities on me that frankly weren't going to be going away. And I was just kind of feeling kind of overwhelmed. I love my business, but I was overwhelmed in the way I was delivering it. So for me, your program allowed me to kind of look at things big picture, actually pull back and scale certain things back.
Mhm.
Um, and then out of that was just amazing because again, I was able to do that, but then also just kind of readdress and realign my business. So all of a sudden, my project lists went from here to here
Yeah.
because I understood that so much better.
Yeah.
And then I also the projects that I was keeping on my plate were much more focused in a direction. And I didn't have to get rid of certain things. I mean, there were certain projects I didn't get rid of, but I was able to kind of demote to a different level in the system so I can just focus on what made sense.
Mhm.
So, and ironically, I mean, in that time frame, I hired a new assistant who has worked out perfectly. And again, she just had the skill set that I needed. And
Mhm.
then also some of the things that we talk about or that you focus on just the communication systems and everything has made it so much easier to have,
Hmm.
her in place. And again, the projects that I'm focusing on are just, it's just so much more easy to run my business um, overall. And ironically, I think I had made some decisions to scale back, but now that those things are working, I can actually see how that can be scaled to something much bigger
Hmm.
in a much more manageable way.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. I was just talking to somebody earlier and she said that when she jumped in, she knew she needed something different, but she didn't know what that next level would look like. So I'm curious to hear from you. Did you know what was missing, or did you know what some of the issues were, or did you feel like I don't know what the next level looks like? Or how did that play into this for you?
For me, I mean, well, I think I had reached out to you for, one, I was working on some of these systems in my business, but like my operations piece.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so initially I'm like, oh, that's great. I'll be able to learn that. What I didn't realize was there were other areas of my business and the way I was kind of running things. And actually not just my business, my life, like a lot of the personal also. So I think there was a lot of things that I didn't come to the program with. I was just excited to have, you
Yeah.
know, to be able to see how you've been successful in your businesses and your courses.
Mhm.
But I was really surprised at how overarching a lot of these concepts were.
Yeah.
And so I kind of I came away with a lot more than I had expected, essentially, because, like I said, in a lot of this kind of systematic way of running things
Mhm.
is now kind of how I'm running personal and
Yeah, yeah, it's amazing how.
professional, and it is
Yeah,
that has made a huge difference.
yeah,
Um, yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I didn't come with a specific agenda, but I certainly walked away with a lot more.
yeah, because I think that's sometimes hard to know what you need when you're not sure why you're stuck or why something's not working, right? It's hard to see what that would look like.
Absolutely,
And I think that's the
absolutely,
challenge sometimes, the awareness of, oh, so that's what, and like hindsight is 2020. It's like looking
absolutely.
back, it's like, oh, that's what I needed, but I didn't
Right,
know at the
right.
time, you
Well,
know?
and I think, I follow a lot of the same things, and I love, I love organization. So I was thinking, I'm like, oh, well, I know some of these things. So I wasn't thinking that I was going to gain as much as I did on some of the basic concepts. But as we went through the program, I was like, oh my goodness, no wonder we need this kind of year-long engagement, because
Yeah.
you need that time and space to obviously understand the concepts, then try them out in your own world, and then reflect on them and then tweak them.
Mm-hmm.
So that piece was I mean, it was kind of surprising. I didn't realize how valuable that would be. You know,
Hmm.
I've done other programs and everything. And I think one of the reasons that this is sticking is
Hmm.
because it is a longer engagement, and you can tweak it, and even things that I started in the very beginning, I moved around and moved around based on conversations that we would have, or based on seeing how others were applying that in their business.
Yeah, and that's a question I think I've gotten several times now. It's like, why is this so long? Like, why is it a full year, this program? Why don't we just knock this out in like 2 months, 3 months, or whatever it is? And I could have put, that out there, but I chose specifically not to because this is more of a lifestyle change and you need space to implement and you need time to see how things are working. And, seasons for somebody who is stressed or pulled in a lot of directions, like it can be very up and down, like a roller coaster.
Oh,
And we
absolutely.
just need some time to do things in a smaller progression, in a more spacious way,
Yes.
for it to
Yes.
stick, like you said, for it to actually happen, that change takes place. Because it would be like trying to pick up a new skill in like 1 or 2 days. It just doesn't work that way.
Yes.
It takes practice,
Yes.
repetition, small implementation, gradual progress. And sometimes people, I feel like nowadays, like we're so short on attention span and we want our results like so fast that we're like, it didn't work. And I'm like, well, you only spent a few hours on it. Of course it didn't work yet. And I
Yes.
sometimes have a hard time communicating that to potential students, but I
Yes.
really feel like um, if you are stretched, if you're running from place to place, if you have that type of life where it feels like it's too stressful or you're pulling so many different directions, it's because you're not giving things the time that it needs.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So I didn't want to contribute to that because I could have put out a program like that, but it wouldn't work for people. This works because we're giving it the space it needs. That's how I
Oh,
feel.
absolutely, absolutely. And even again, I can look back in that time, and that, basically a year, in that first month or two, some of the things that I was organizing and diving into were not, that really wasn't what I needed to be
Yeah.
doing. It was a great place to start, and I learned a lot. But then it was like once you start doing that and realizing, wait a minute, there's more to this
Mhm.
and more to this, and you kind of start peeling back that onion, and you're like, okay, now I'm getting to the nuts and bolts. So,
Mhm. Yeah. It takes time to open that and peel the onion and
absolutely.
figuring out exactly
Yeah.
what's going on. Yeah. Yeah. And I love that you brought up the personal versus the business because you know me, that's a lot of what we focus on, not just in MMM, but in quarterly planning and in CS in all of my courses. It's like there has to be that dual looking glass. We can't just
Yeah.
ignore half of the problem
Yeah.
and
Well, absolutely.
fix
And,
half
and
of
our personal life sometimes can stand in the way of our success in business.
this.
And I think for me, one of the biggest ahas was the difference between, the projects that we're trying to manage and
Mhm.
the areas of our life that need to be maintained.
Mhm.
So, again, I was kind of treating so much as projects, and it becomes overwhelming. And then you realize, well, wait a minute, these are areas of my life, they're not going to go away, that
Mhm.
if I can systematize and identify what's reoccurring and everything, all of a sudden when that system's in place, it's
Mhm.
like you shift that off your plate.
Yeah.
And again, it still exists, but you've just addressed it and you know what's going to happen again and again. And it starts shifting your calendar. It shifts the way that you communicate with other people in your family, in your business. But it makes the load so much lighter.
Mhm.
Um, and one of the things I loved is not only are you teaching how to do that, like understanding what you're talking about, how to do that, but then you show us examples in your system, and you're like, even the way that you're running the course that we are in.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then all of a sudden you're like, wow, that this is, you take big things and make them simple.
Mhm.
And then you actually show us how it's working, you know,
Mhm. Mhm.
and how it's going to move forward. So it just helps us when you're in the program, it helps you go, okay, this is how I can do this. And this is what it's going to look like when I'm done.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned that because that's one of the shifts I've tried to make. Because for many years I made the mistake, and I've blogged on this, that I was so busy trying to tell people what to do, but I was lacking in the way I was showing and modeling it myself.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like people kind of knew like what I was asking them to do, but they didn't have a concrete maybe example of what that would look like.
Right.
So I've tried really hard in the past few years to be more transparent and show exactly how I do things and
Mhm.
how I structure things and why it's working and like bring people more in. It's a little bit more vulnerable to do it that way, right?
Right.
To show the inside, the back end of things, but I feel like that's why this works, a lot of
Yeah.
it.
Well, and then it's also duplicatable too.
Yeah, exactly.
And again, going back to, hiring an employee, I've had multiple assistants and different people in that role, but being able to hone in on not only what I need and what I need that to look like, but then also in hiring her and her understanding the system, she understands like, oh, okay, when she's doing something that's eventually going to be duplicatable, she needs to document it in a certain way. And again, it created just an infrastructure that I can see duplicating in the future, which is huge in business as well.
Yeah, yeah. And you and I have known each other for quite a few
Oh
years now,
yeah,
which has been
abs-
great.
over 10
You-
years. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. And we've worked, you've done some private coaching with me and you've been in
Yes.
other programs that I've run and things like that too. So we
Yeah.
have a very good, I feel like synergy and um like communication skills between us. Like we know each other very well
Yes.
and all of
Yeah.
that. So that trust is also obviously not everybody's going to have that with me, but I hope that people can see too that I prefer to have really good long relationships with people and
Yeah.
help them for like success in the long run, supportive success
Yeah.
going not just this year, but like next year and the next year and the next year. I want to see the progress over time.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can't rush a lot of that too. And that's,
Yeah, absolutely. That takes
yeah,
time,
it takes time.
and it's funny because I mean, we've known each other over 10 years, or at least I remember I knew of you because I remember back in the day I'd be writing a blog on photo organizing, and then I'm like, actually, I think one of the first times I reached out to you was I was going to write a blog on a certain topic. And I saw your blog and I'm like, I can't even touch the depth that she just went into. And I think I reached out like, do you mind? I'm going to be pointing to your blog because that is perfect.
Mhm.
And so I've always loved the kind of the depth that you go into.
Mhm.
Um, but you also have this kind of calm, non-judgmental way about you. So it's kind of this nice combination. And particularly in a program like this, I think you have to be able to be comfortable, to be vulnerable and say, kind of open up the
Yeah.
back of your business and,
Yeah. It is
all
vulnerable.
that's going on. It's a lot. So it's important to have somebody that's willing to, to kind of sit back and just be a calming.
Yeah, I think that's key too. We're trying very hard for it to be a very safe space. We want it to feel supportive. We want it to feel calm and balanced and
Yep.
steady. So
Yep.
that when you are coming in from that scattered energy, we're not contributing to that. We're actually
Right.
taking away from it. Like we
Right.
want our spot to be like a place where you can actually breathe and put an objective hat on and see what's going on. Um,
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But then on the flip side of that, when you have to go deep into something, it's like, I kind of love it because like you're just calm and listening, and then all of a sudden somebody has a question, and then you just dive right in, and your stuff. So it's like, oh, okay, she's not messing around.
it's
So
it's vulnerable for sure to open up, right? And to let yourself be seen by other people. I mean, that's something I struggled with for years myself, but I feel like that's one of the reasons why I wanted to create this program, is because we need peers and we need support. And sometimes at the top, it can be really lonely.
yeah,
You don't always have people around you that understand what's happening, especially not if you're like a high achieving entrepreneur or if you're just somebody, I mean, hopefully you have some peer support, but a lot of people I feel like lack that peer support because maybe they have employees or other people that they have to manage, but nobody to actually talk to on a CEO level or like what's going on right now, you know?
yeah, I think that's really common. And as business owners, we start this business, that's kind of like our baby, and
Hmm.
we're in the weeds. But then, particularly as you grow this business, it is lonely because
Hmm.
most of us, like I said, are managing this small business. Like, so you have employees, but they're not at that same level. You can't necessarily open up and go, oh my goodness, I feel like,
It's
I
not
need to
appropriate
revamp
all
this.
at
You
once. Yeah.
can't do that with your employees or with your clients,
Yeah.
or even spouse or friends may not even quite get what we do. So I think it's so nice to be in a place that everybody understands that, um,
Yeah.
and can kind of come together and manage that process.
Yeah. Just from people who get it, who are like, yeah, I've been there. I get what that's like. It's
Yep.
really, really valuable to have that. Um, Now, are you somebody like I know you've invested in coaching with me and stuff like that in the past, but are you a person that invests in a lot of programs? Overall, do you enjoy personal development to that extent? Because that's something that I heavily invest in. I'm just curious
Yes.
to hear
Yep.
from you. Is that a
Oh,
value?
absolutely. I've had different coaches. I've done group coaching. I've done one-on-one coaching. I've done, in different areas of my business. So yeah, I think it's super valuable. I think it's important to have um, that separate advising,
Hmm.
that, somebody that can kind of step out of your business and look, from a new perspective and give you that.
Hmm.
I also think that you have to talk to people that, or have to be consulting with people that are, beyond where you are,
Yeah.
somebody that's experienced that. So I know, like in our program, there are people that are kind of starting out, and trust me, if I could have done this back 10 years ago and set up some of the systems, I mean, I think I had my business was well organized, but it was not, there were certain areas that I could have structured very differently. So,
Yeah.
for somebody that's new, that would be invaluable. But then also, if you're, sometimes you're growing and you've got this business in place, but you're just overwhelmed. And sometimes it's just those systems need to be put in place to kind of reset things.
Hmm.
So I think, being able to accomplish that through coaching is huge. Um, but yeah, I think that's
Big
just
point
what we should
that you
do.
brought up, that organization or being organized is not necessarily the same as being systematized.
Oh, absolutely,
That's
absolutely. And like I said, I underestimated how, I understand a lot of the concepts, but being able to kind of have the system in place, but the systematic thinking around everything that you're doing. Because I think in your program, again, you kind of start at the very beginning, you explain each concept.
hmm
And there's a lot of introspection that we have to do, and then we have to kind of apply that.
hmm
But more importantly, is once you kind of have these things in place, now you can evaluate new opportunities and new things that you want to add to your life or your business in a whole new way. So just because things are color coded and nicely organized doesn't mean they're all going to fit where it's going to work.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think that's, again, it's another level that I mean, I really haven't seen in a lot of other programs. I think a lot of people have some great programs. That doesn't mean it's going to be something that you're actually going to be utilizing 3 years from now or 5 years from now.
Right, right. Yeah, it's a big difference. And sometimes you feel like everything is in place, but maybe you don't know what that, like we said before, what that next level of I don't even know how to say that, systematization looks like. Um,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah.
and I'm curious about the sort of MMM framework, the Monday routine.
Mhm.
Did you find, because one question that I get is like, do I have to do this on a Monday, this, framework? And I'm like, no, I do it on a Monday. That's what the
Right.
program is called
Yeah.
for a reason, because I wanted a nice soft start to my week. You don't have to do it on a Monday. I'm curious to hear from you if and when you have implemented some of that routine,
Yes.
and like when you do that.
So I started trying to do it on Monday, kind of like you were doing it. And I will say, admittedly, in the beginning, I'm like, oh, this is not gonna take me all day. Come on, not I shouldn't say all day, but it's not gonna take me as long.
Mhm.
But now I kind of do it, I do part of it on Sunday and part of it on Monday. And just personally, I feel like the Sunday portion is more that um just kind of the mindset piece. And that way, Monday morning, I have the time to do what I need to do and be
Yeah.
evaluating my projects and setting everything into place. So I've actually split that, what used to be Monday, into kind of a little bit on Sunday and then the rest Monday morning.
Yeah, that's cool. And it kind of goes to show that you don't have to do this in the like I try hard to set up no matter what course or program I'm running, that from other courses too that I've
Mhm.
done, that I always go for a universal workflow, regardless of tool,
Yep.
regardless of system, regardless of whatever. And I want the process to be solid and have it work and stand alone. And then if you do it on whatever day or in whatever tool or whatever system, that's your choice, but the
Right.
process is the same. So it's kind of cool that you do that way so that, because that shows that everything doesn't have to be implemented exactly the way I do things in order for it to still work, you know?
Absolutely. There's another colleague of ours that did the program as well. And, I'm doing a lot in Notion. She's doing a lot in Google Sheets. And, she was trying Notion. She's like, nope, that's not for me. But
Mhm.
she's doing a lot of the same concepts in Google Sheets. And I know she's implemented portions of this in the way she would use things. And it's kind of worked into the workflow with her clients and
Mhm.
reviewing projects with her clients specifically. So yeah, it's interesting how we've had a lot of the same concepts and completely different tools.
Yeah, which is fine because
Mhm.
not everybody's going to be in the same system. We all have, and that's the thing. It's like all of us are running different businesses.
Mhm.
We have people who have actual offices. We have people who are remote workers. We have people who, are in all types of different situations.
Yeah,
And I feel like the framework still works no matter who you are and what type of business you're running. It's the same concepts. It's just maybe the implementation just looks a little bit different, and the way we help you implement it, that's okay. Like as long as you're still getting the gist of all of it and getting the overall structure in place, the structure can live anywhere. And the
absolutely. Yeah. When I
practices.
know a lot of, I think when I was looking at your website and everything, a lot of talk about being a digital nomad.
Mhm.
And I thought, well, I do a little of that, or I like being able to be remote, but I don't really travel. My business is not, I'm not doing that. But it was amazing because some of those same concepts made me realize how I needed flexibility in doing what I need to do in caring for family members and everything. So in a
Yeah.
way, for me, it was just how do I structure my work so I can do it from anywhere. It may just not be around the world like it is for you.
Yeah.
But and then for people that are truly wanting to be a digital nomad, this would be invaluable because I think just in the year's time, you were constantly coming to us from different countries, on our calls. And it was amazing to see how you were running your business
Mhm.
um, throughout the travels that you had.
Yeah, because it's really at the core is about freeing up your time and freeing up and having that spaciousness that you want and need and the flexibility that you need.
Mhm.
Not
Yes.
be so stressed and pulled in so many different directions. And then whatever you do with that time, like that's up to you. If it's
Yep.
caring for a family member, if it's traveling, whatever it might be
Yep.
that you need to spend time on, like the whole point is like, let's free up your time so that you can do that and be there for those things, you know?
Absolutely.
That's kind of the gist of it. Yeah, so okay. So that's really interesting to hear too. And yeah, I think it's interesting how we've had a couple of different motivations for people coming into this program. Like some people felt like, oh, I was just super stressed. And then another person was like, well, I just needed to balance personal and business. And
Mhm.
somebody else was like, I just needed to understand project management and like how to not have so many tasks on my to-do list. So there's been different motivations that I've heard from different people about coming in, but I feel like the result has been the same, which is really cool. Which is like,
Oh, absolutely. Because I felt like I got all three of those things out of the program, to be honest.
that's good.
Um, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So then what would you say to somebody, do you think? Because I know it's an investment, not only of money, but of time, of energy.
Mhm.
What would be your advice to somebody who's thinking, is this for me? Is it not for me? What do you think
I
they
mean,
can look at to decide?
I think, I mean, obviously everybody's coming to it from a different place and you need to, evaluate that for yourself. But like I was saying before, I mean, if you're a newbie, but you do know that you want to create something that, a serious business, this is a no-brainer because again, you would be building, this is like the framework, the building blocks to that successful business. For somebody that's just feeling that overwhelm, like maybe it's not so much the business nuts and bolts, but like the overwhelm of balance.
Hmm. Hmm.
Again, like I know personally that was a huge piece for me. It's like this is going to address both the personal and the business. Um, and then somebody that's just trying to kind of take their business idea, their service-based business on the road and be that kind of digital nomad. Again, this is the example you need to figure out how to structure that.
Hmm.
So if again, I think there's so many different people that can benefit from that. So if that's really the question, I think that for a lot of people, like, is this going to work for me? I think, I can certainly vouch for that.
Yeah. 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 And how did you feel about, basically the value of time investment because there is some work to it. Like progress, there's always work involved, right?
Yep.
So how did you feel about the time investment versus ROI, meaning some time to
Uh,
sit aside, and watch the lessons and participate in the calls and doing the work, and then compared to the ROI you got out of it? I'm curious to hear about that experience.
oh, well, I mean, again, just if nothing else, just systematizing your business,
Hmm.
that is huge. I mean, that's something that I think no matter what you do as a business owner, you have to have the systems in place. You have to have the way of communicating both with clients and with your employees. So that in and of itself is invaluable. So, I mean, that just being able to choose how you're going to do that, what that workflow looks like, what are the pieces of all of that. That's all in the system. So, I mean, I think everybody has to do that. Um, so it's well worth the time. And then just kind of on a different level, I mean, I know, getting on the calls and exchanging ideas and everything, that was just not only was it valuable, it was also fun. I mean, because it became this network of friends that you look forward to talking to. And, oftentimes we're, you know, rushing back from a client or finishing up a project just to get onto that call, but it was always that safe space where we can, okay, I'm doing what I need to do. But, so that portion of it just became more of a fun thing. I didn't want to miss that just because it wasn't work.
Yeah.
Um, that
Yeah.
was, almost like this, you know,
The safe.
fun gathering of people you enjoy hanging out with.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that was a lot of fun.
And still going to be in it this year because we have Sherry, who's going to be our co-coach, which we have our call today a little later.
Yes.
So excited about
Yes. And
yeah.
it's funny because you actually turned me on to her, and I that became part of my morning routine and getting into the kind of bookending that you do. So it's a lot of fun as you start adding these resources to your programs, because I was like, oh, that's awesome. I love that.
It's a huge, I think we're going to have a lot of fun this year. And I really can't wait for more people to join and experience that because it really is, I think, a game changer. And just
Oh,
like
absolutely.
holding a mirror up. And I know this is a scary thing because what we're really trying to do is hold a mirror up so that people can see what's going on and
Yes.
step back and put on an objective hat and go, okay, we need to make some changes here. And then
Yeah.
we go, okay, so now that we know that, what changes are we going to make?
Yeah.
And this is how we go about doing those. So it's a little bit, vulnerable. It's a little bit intimidating maybe sometimes, but up leveling is always a little scary. It's supposed to be. Otherwise, you're not really doing it right, you
Well,
have
it's
to.
kind of like business therapy. It's like,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
it's like, oh, okay. I don't know if I
Mhm.
want to see what's there, but
Do I
once
want
you
to know what's
know.
going on? You actually do, but it's important too that we have that safe space to explore that because it's not always easy, it can
Oh,
be
absolutely. Yeah,
scary
absolutely.
too. So, but yeah, but thank you for doing this because I feel like hearing from, real participants in the program, like it's just so helpful for everybody to understand like what's involved and all of that. And it's lifestyle changes are not easy, but they are necessary because if
Yeah,
you're in that scattered place and you're always stretched to the max and it's just not sustainable and we don't want you to live like that. Like there's a different way. There's a better way to do things. And we
yeah.
want you to have that ease about it.
Well, Caroline, thank you so much. I mean, I'm just grateful that I was able to be a part of the program and,
Yeah.
get what I've been able to
Great.
get out of it. And
Yeah.
so I'm excited to see where things go from here.
Yeah, a year from now, we should do like a little update and see where we are. I think that could be cool. Um,
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. And for anybody who is watching, if you need any more information on the program, feel free to reach out. We're happy to talk to you over DMs, email, chat, whatever works for you. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you soon.